AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me after she got kicked out of her parents' house. Even though I have plenty of space, I 28F bought my first home about a year ago. It's a modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood, and I've worked incredibly hard for it. I grew up in a family where money was always tight, and I've been financially independent since I was 19. I budget carefully, I don't travel much, and I don't buy luxury stuff. This house was my dream, my safe place. My younger sister, Kayla, 22F, has always been the opposite of me. She's smart, funny, and charismatic, but she's also impulsive and kind of entitled. Growing up, she was the golden child. My parents were always more lenient with her. If I came home after curfew, I was grounded. If she did, they laughed and asked if she did fun. When I worked part-time jobs in high school, I had to buy my own clothes and pay for gas. Kayla never had to work. After high school, I moved out and started working full-time while going to community college. Kayla went to university, dropped out after a year, and then bounced between low-paying jobs. My parents continued to support her financially. They paid her rent, her car insurance, even her phone bill. I warned them she needed to learn responsibility, but they said she was just figuring things out. Well, last month things came to a head. Kayla got fired from her retail job for repeatedly showing up late, and when my parents found out, they told her they were done supporting her. Apparently, she yelled at my mom, called her controlling, and stormed out. A few days later, she texted me saying she needed a place to stay temporarily. I hesitated. I love my sister, but I know how she is. I asked her what temporarily meant, and she said a couple of months max. I told her I'd think about it. I talked to my parents, and they said I should help her out since I had the space and Kayla was in a tough spot. But my gut told me this wasn't a good idea. I tried to set some boundaries before agreeing. I told Kayla if she stayed, she'd have to contribute $300 a month for utilities and groceries, clean up after herself, and actively look for a job. She got defensive and said, "Wow, you're really going to charge your own sister rent?" I thought family was supposed to help each other. That rubbed me the wrong way. I reminded her that I worked for everything I have and that I'm not her parent. She said I was being cold and money-obsessed. Eventually, I told her no, she couldn't move in with me. Cue the family drama. My mom called me, crying, saying Kayla was sleeping on a friend's couch and didn't deserve to be abandoned. My dad said he didn't expect this kind of cruelty from me. They both said I was lucky to have my life together and should share my blessings. The thing is, I didn't get lucky. I sacrificed a lot to be stable. I worked 60-hour weeks, skipped vacations, and paid off my student loans early. I know if Kayla moves in, she won't leave after 2 months. She'll take advantage of me the way she's taken advantage of our parents. A week after I said no, Kayla showed up at my door anyway with 2 suitcases. She was crying and said her friend couldn't keep her anymore. She asked if she could just stay for a few days until she figured something out. Against my better judgment, I let her in. Within 48 hours, I regretted it. She immediately treated the place like it was hers, left dirty dishes everywhere, took over the living room to watch TV late into the night, and even invited a guy over without asking me. When I confronted her, she said I was being uptight and needed to relax. The final straw came when I noticed $60 missing from my wallet. I confronted her, and she swore she didn't take it, but I knew she was lying. She's done this before. I told her to pack her stuff and leave. She called me heartless and said I was kicking her while she's down. I gave her 2 days to find somewhere else. My parents went ballistic when they found out. My mom said I was destroying the family and accused me of being jealous of Kayla because people actually like her. My dad said I should be ashamed for turning away my own sister. Kayla posted a vague rant on social media about fake family who only care about money. A few of her friends messaged me saying I was cruel for putting her out when she had nowhere to go. For the record, I did offer to pay for a week at an extended stay motel so she'd have somewhere safe while she looked for a job. She refused, saying I was trying to get rid of her. I told her honestly that I was. Now, my parents barely speak to me. My mom texted me last week saying, "I hope you never need help one day, because now you know what it feels like to be abandoned." It really hurt. Part of me wonders if I could have handled things differently. Maybe I could have let her stay for a few months and just enforced the rules more firmly. But I know how manipulative she can be, and I was already feeling anxious and angry all the time when she was there. My best friend says I did the right thing and that it's not my job to fix my sister. My boyfriend agrees, but thinks I should try to talk to my parents again to clear the air. I've tried, but every conversation turns into them guilt-tripping me about family loyalty. I am honestly exhausted. I feel like the villain in my own family just because I set boundaries. I don't hate my sister. I just don't want to sacrifice my peace and home for someone who refuses to take responsibility for herself. Still, I keep thinking about her. She's immature and spoiled, yes, but she's also my little sister. I hate imagining her couch hopping or struggling. I wonder if I could have been more compassionate. But then I remember the way she smirked when I found the missing cash and how she laughed when I said she needed to respect my space. I don't know if refusing her makes me a bad person or just someone who's finally tired of being used. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister live with me and then kicking her out when she overstepped. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to give up my weird family tradition at my husband's company Thanksgiving dinner. So this happened last weekend, and I'm still kind of shocked at how dramatic it got. My husband, Jake, 34M, works for a large marketing firm that hosts a fancy Thanksgiving dinner every year for employees and their families. It's one of those corporate events where everyone's trying to impress everyone else. Expensive wine, plated meals, a live jazz trio, all of that. I, 31F, married Jake 3 years ago, and this was my second time attending the dinner. Last year, it was all right, but I didn't talk much because I didn't know anyone. This year, though, I wanted to make an effort. Jake's boss, co-workers, and the partner's spouses were all going to be there. I figured I'd bring a little personality and warmth to balance the corporate stiffness. Here's where the issue comes in. My family has this Thanksgiving tradition that started when I was a kid. Every year, before we eat, we each go around the table and say one thing we're thankful for. But the rule is it can't be something generic. No, I'm thankful for my family, or I'm thankful for good health. You have to get specific, or tell a small story about something that made you grateful that year. It's actually really heartwarming, and it always ends in laughter or tears. When I was getting ready for the dinner, I mentioned to Jake that maybe I'd suggest we do a quick, thankful round at our table before the meal was served, just for fun. He immediately said, "Please don't do that." I asked why not, and he said it would make people uncomfortable, that it's a corporate event, not a family potluck. I thought he was overreacting. It's Thanksgiving, not a quarterly meeting. I told him it would be nice to make things feel a little more human. He rolled his eyes and said, "Just please, don't embarrass me." Fast forward to the dinner. We're seated at a round table with Jake's boss, the boss's wife, 2 coworkers, and another couple. Everyone's chatting politely about travel plans, house renovations, and their kids. It's pleasant but very sterile. When the servers started bringing out the first course, there was this small lull in conversation. I thought perfect timing, so I smiled and said something like, "Before we eat, my family always shares one thing we're thankful for that's unique or special from the past year. Would anyone be up for trying it?" There was this pause. Then Jake's boss's wife lit up and said, "Oh, that's such a lovely idea." She immediately shared hers, something about being thankful for a surprise visit from her daughter. Then another woman joined in, talking about her recovery from surgery. A few people started nodding and smiling. It was actually going well. Even Jake's boss chimed in and thanked his team for their hard work during a tough year. Then got to Jake. He looked mortified. He muttered something like, "I'm thankful this dinner's almost over," with a forced laugh. People chuckled awkwardly, but it kind of killed the nice vibe we had going. After that, the conversation drifted back to safer topics, and I didn't push it. But Jake was fuming on the drive home. He said I completely ignored his request and humiliated him in front of his boss. I told him literally no one was humiliated. Everyone else enjoyed it. He said I made him look unprofessional and folksy. I asked if being human was unprofessional, and he said, "At work events, yes, sometimes it is." When we got home, he barely spoke to me. The next day, he told me his boss made a joking comment about how I ran a group therapy session before the meal. He said he laughed it off, but he was mortified. I apologized for making him uncomfortable, but also said I thought it brought warmth to the dinner and that people appreciated it. He snapped that I need to learn to read the room. Here's the thing. I genuinely wasn't trying to show him up or make it about me. I just wanted to share something meaningful. I thought it would make people feel closer, especially in a stuffy environment. And honestly, it seemed like it worked until Jake's reaction made it weird. But now he's saying he doesn't want me coming to his work events anymore. He told me I don't understand boundaries between personal and professional life. I think he's being dramatic, but now I'm second-guessing myself. The kicker is that one of his co-workers' wives actually messaged me on Facebook afterward to say she thought my tradition was really touching and that she planned to try it with her family. So clearly not everyone hated it. Still, Jake's anger feels deeper than just embarrassment. He said, "I've worked for years to be seen as serious and strategic, and now my boss thinks my wife is some emotional oversharer. That really stung because I'm not an oversharer. I'm just expressive. We've been tense all week. I tried to explain that I just wanted to help make a good impression by being kind and genuine, but he insists that's not how you make an impression in corporate culture. My family thinks Jake's being uptight and that his company sounds cold. My sister even joked that if his boss can't handle a gratitude circle, maybe he's the one who needs therapy. But I also know how important Jake's career is to him. I didn't mean to jeopardize that. Now I'm stuck wondering if I really cross a line by ignoring his request, or if he's just projecting his anxiety onto me. AITA for bringing my family's Thanksgiving tradition into my husband's work dinner after he told me not to. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in with me after she destroyed my trust the last time she lived here. So I, 29F, bought my first house about 3 years ago. It's a small 2-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. I worked my butt off to save for the down payment after years of crappy apartments and roommates who couldn't pay rent on time. It was supposed to be my fresh start, my own space, my own rules, my own peace. At the time, my younger sister, Tara, 24F, was still living with our parents. She's always been the kind of person who has a lot of plans, but rarely follows through. She'd start new hobbies every month, quit jobs after a few weeks because they weren't fulfilling, and somehow always ended up needing help. My parents usually bailed her out, paying her bills, letting her move back in, buying her groceries, the works. When she got into a fight with them about boundaries, my mom had asked her to do her own laundry, apparently that was controlling. Tara called me crying, saying she had nowhere to go. I didn't want her homeless, so I offered to let her stay in my spare room for a few months until she could get back on her feet. I made it clear it was temporary, 3 months max, and she'd need to contribute $400 per month toward utilities and groceries. She agreed enthusiastically and moved in the next day. At first, it was fine. We'd cook dinner together, watch TV, and I actually enjoyed having company. But that honeymoon phase lasted maybe 2 weeks. She started skipping her rent contributions, saying she was between jobs. She'd take food I'd bought specifically for work lunches, leave dirty dishes everywhere, and have friends over late at night without asking. The biggest problem, though, was the constant lying. She'd tell me she was applying for jobs when she was really sleeping till noon. She'd claim she was helping around the house when she'd done nothing but leave piles of laundry on the living room floor. When I tried to talk to her about it, she'd cry and accuse me of being just like mom and dad, controlling and judgmental. The breaking point came about 2 months in. I came home early from work one Friday and found my living room full of strangers. Tara had thrown a small get-together that looked a lot more like a house party. There were drinks spilled on my couch, people smoking inside, and someone had even gone through my bedroom drawers. My laptop and a couple of pieces of jewelry were missing by the end of the night. Tara swore she didn't know the people who took them and that it wasn't her fault. I was furious. I told her she had 2 weeks to move out. My parents thought I was being too harsh, but I stuck to it. She left after a lot of drama, crying, yelling, saying I had chosen possessions over family. Fast forward about a year. Tara's been hopping from one friend's couch to another. She hasn't held a steady job in over a year, though she posts constantly on social media about manifesting abundance and trusting the universe. She and my parents are barely speaking because they finally stopped funding her lifestyle. 2 weeks ago, she called me again. She said she was finally ready to make a change and asked if she could move back in for just a couple of months until she could save for her own place. I told her I'd think about it, but honestly, my gut reaction was no. I've worked really hard since she left to make my house a calm, organized space. I got a promotion, adopted a dog, started dating someone seriously, and generally just have my life together. I don't want that disrupted again. When I told Tara no, she flipped. She said I was holding a grudge, that I shouldn't punish her for past mistakes, and that family helps each other. I told her I was happy to help her look for affordable housing or a job, but she couldn't live with me again. She started crying, saying I was cold-hearted and that no wonder you don't have many close friends. Then my mom called. Apparently, Tara had told her I'd kicked her while she was down. My mom said she understood where I was coming from, but that Tara really needs stability right now, and that it would mean the world if I gave her another chance. My dad, on the other hand, told me privately that he didn't blame me. He's tired of bailing her out too. Now Tara's been posting vague stuff on social media about fake family and people who abandon you when you need them most. Some mutual friends have reached out to ask what happened, and a few have hinted that maybe I should have given her another shot, especially since I have a spare room that's mostly used for storage now. I don't think people understand how stressful it was the last time she lived with me. I lost things that were never recovered, had my home violated, and spent months walking on eggshells. I've rebuilt my peace, and I don't want to lose it again. Still, part of me wonders if I'm being too harsh. People do grow up, right? Maybe she really has changed. But the cynical part of me thinks she just ran out of other options and came back to the person who used to bail her out. I keep replaying the last time in my head, how she promised she'd pay rent and be responsible, how quickly that fell apart. I don't want to live like that again. But when I told her I wouldn't let her move in, she said something that stuck with me. You talk about being independent, but you're just selfish. You'd rather see me struggle than help. That hit harder than I'd like to admit. I don't want to see her struggle. I just don't want to lose myself trying to save her again. My boyfriend says I'm doing the right thing, that I can support her in other ways, helping her write a resume, driving her to job interviews, even lending her some money for a deposit if needed. But he also warned me that if I let her move in, it'll end the same way. My mom's guilt tripping has been relentless, though. She keeps saying, "You're her sister. One day you might need her too," which is ironic because every time I needed Tara, rides, emotional support, someone to help me move, she was too busy or didn't have the energy. So now I'm torn between maintaining my boundaries and feeling like a heartless jerk. Am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister move back in with me, even though she says she's changed? AITA for refusing to move out of the house my late husband built, even though his adult kids say it belongs to them? So, for context, I, 54F, was married to my late husband, Tom, for 18 years before he passed away unexpectedly last year. Tom was 14 years older than me, and when we met, he already had 2 adult children, Adam, now 35, and Claire, 33, from his first marriage. Their mother and Tom had divorced long before I ever came into the picture. I never tried to be their mom, but I was always kind to them, invited them for holidays, and did what I could to make them feel comfortable. We were cordial, not close, but not hostile either. Tom built our house, literally built it. He was a contractor and had bought a piece of land in his 30s. Over time, with his own hands and help from friends, he designed and constructed the place. When I met him, he was living there, still finishing up details. I moved in after we married. Together, we remodeled some rooms, added a garden, and built a life. I love that house not just because it was beautiful, but because every inch of it carried pieces of him. When Tom passed, it was sudden, a heart attack. We hadn't gotten around to updating our wills after a refinance. The existing one was from before our marriage, naming his 2 kids as beneficiaries. However, after he married, we bought out his ex-wife's claim to some of his assets, and he added me as a joint owner on the house title about 10 years ago. That means legally, the house passed directly to me when he died. But Adam and Claire don't see it that way. About 3 weeks after the funeral, they showed up at my door together and asked if we could talk. I thought they wanted to check in, maybe go through Tom's personal effects or talk about memories. Instead, they told me they expected me to move out within the year so they could keep the family home. They said they were giving me time because they knew I must be grieving. I was stunned. I told them the house was mine now, not part of their inheritance. They looked at me like I'd grown 2 heads. Adam said, "That house has been in our family since before you even knew Dad." I corrected him. Tom built it after his divorce, but he waved me off and said it didn't matter because Dad always said the house would go to us. I asked if they had anything in writing saying that. They didn't. Tom had never changed the original will to reflect me, but he had changed the house's deed to joint tenancy with right of survivorship, which means it's legally mine now. I told them that, and Adam said, "You're hiding behind paperwork." Over the following months, they became increasingly hostile. They accused me of manipulating Tom into adding me to the deed. They said I was stealing their inheritance. Claire called me cold and said I was erasing their dad's legacy. They even contacted Tom's sister to get her on their side. She called me, saying, "Maybe it's best if you just sell it to keep peace." But here's the thing. It's my home. It's where Tom and I planted the oak tree in the yard, where we spent lazy Sundays cooking, where I still wake up expecting to hear his laugh in the kitchen. Leaving would feel like losing him all over again. When I told them that, Adam scoffed and said, "You already got 18 years with him. We lost our dad. That one hurt." I told them that I lost my husband, the person I chose to grow old with, and that their grief doesn't cancel mine. Things escalated last month when I started fixing some roof damage. Adam showed up while the workers were there and told them I wasn't authorized to do renovations. He claimed he was the rightful heir and that they should stop work immediately. I had to show them the title papers to get him to leave. After that, I had to get a restraining order because he started showing up unannounced, checking on Dad's property. Now, their family has turned against me. Tom's sister and even a couple of cousins have been sending guilt-tripping messages, saying that I should do the right thing and let the kids have their home. One of them even said, "You're sitting in a museum of someone else's childhood." I finally snapped last week when Claire emailed me offering to buy me out for a fraction of what the place is worth. I replied that the house isn't for sale and that if they don't stop harassing me, I'll involve a lawyer. She sent back a long message saying I'm heartless and that Dad would be ashamed of me. I've talked to an estate attorney who confirmed that everything is legally sound. The house is mine, but emotionally, I'm exhausted. Friends tell me to hold my ground, but some of them have quietly admitted they'd probably move out just to get peace. I feel like I'm being painted as some sort of gold-digging widow, which couldn't be further from the truth. I didn't marry Tom for money. I was with him through a cancer scare, through layoffs, through rebuilding this home after a flood. When he died, I didn't just lose him. I lost the person who made that house a home. Sometimes I second-guess myself. Maybe I'm being selfish for wanting to stay in a house that holds so much meaning for his kids, too. Maybe I should sell it and start fresh somewhere else. But then I remember the nights we sat on the porch together, the way he'd talk about us growing old there, and it feels like I'd be betraying him if I left because of pressure. It's been almost a year now, and the tension hasn't faded. Adam and Claire no longer speak to me directly, but I hear through mutual friends that they're planning to contest the deed, even though the lawyer says they have no grounds. I hate that this has turned into such a bitter fight. Tom would have wanted all of us to find peace. I just don't know anymore. I'm grieving, I'm tired, and I'm questioning if standing my ground makes me some kind of villain. So, AITA for refusing to move out of the house my late husband built, even though his kids insist it should belong to them. AITA for refusing to take my sister's kid to Disney after she called me selfish for going without them. I, 32F, have been saving for years to take my fiancé, 34M, and myself on a big vacation before we get married next spring. We're both huge Disney fans, but we've never been able to afford to go together. Between student loans, saving for a down payment, and wedding costs, it's just never been in the cards. Over the past few years, I've been putting away a small amount every month into a fun fund. I told my sister, 35F about it back when I started, because she used to tease me for being a Disney adult. She has a son, my nephew Ethan, 8M, who is honestly a sweet kid and obsessed with Disney too. I love him and buy him little gifts or take him out sometimes, but I'm not his parent, and I've never agreed to pay for any big trips or expenses for him. A few months ago, I finally told my family that my fiancé and I were going to Disney World this November for 10 days. Everyone was happy for us, except my sister. Her reaction was, "Wow, you're really not going to take Ethan? He's going to be heartbroken." I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. She said that since Ethan loved Disney and I wasn't even taking any kids, it was selfish of me not to invite him along. I told her this trip was something my fiancé and I had planned for years and that it was going to cost us thousands. We're staying on site. We got dining reservations and we even splurged on special event tickets. There was absolutely no way we could afford to bring another person, let alone a child. She then said I didn't have to pay for him. She would help with some expenses. But when I asked what she meant, she said she could maybe chip in $200, $300 total. That wouldn't even cover his park tickets for a single day. I told her that just wasn't feasible. Over the next few weeks, she kept bringing it up. She'd send me videos of kids at Disney, saying things like, "Ethan would love this," or, "It's kind of mean you're going without him." My mom got involved at one point, saying she understood my sister's point, but that it wouldn't hurt to take Ethan for a few days. I snapped and told them that this was not a trip for kids. We planned to sleep in, go to fancy restaurants, and drink around the world at Epcot. It was an adult vacation. My sister said that sounded creepy and that Disney is for kids. I told her that was rich coming from someone who constantly complains she never gets a break from parenting. After that, she didn't speak to me for a few weeks. Then last month, she texted me that she had told Ethan about my trip, and apparently, he cried. She said I owed him a magical experience because I've been promising for years to take him somewhere special. That's when I realized she was twisting things. Years ago, when Ethan was about 5, I told him, "Maybe someday Annie will take you on a special trip." That's the kind of thing you say to a kid. It wasn't a promise, and it certainly wasn't meant to obligate me forever. Things exploded last weekend during my mom's birthday dinner. My sister made a snide comment about how I must feel great spending thousands on Mickey while my nephew cries himself to sleep. I told her that was manipulative and cruel. She said I was rubbing my privilege in her face and that if I really loved Ethan, I'd do something meaningful with my money instead of wasting it on overpriced churros. My fiancé tried to defuse things, but it spiraled. My mom said I should just offer to take Ethan for one day to keep the peace. I said absolutely not. One day would mean rearranging everything. Park passes, transportation, meals, and it would completely change the dynamic of the trip. Now my sister has apparently told a bunch of extended family that I'm punishing a child because I'm jealous of being the childless aunt. A cousin texted me saying I should just let the kid come because he'll remember it forever. But nobody offering opinions seems willing to pay the extra $3,000 it would cost to make that happen. The worst part is, I love Ethan. I don't want him to think I'm rejecting him. I even offered to plan a special weekend trip next summer. Something affordable and local, like a water park or zoo, but my sister said that's not the same. Now, there's a whole family group chat argument going on. My mom says she's tired of the drama, but that sometimes compromise is worth it. My fiancé says if I cave now, my sister will expect this kind of thing forever. I agree with him, but I also feel guilty because I don't want Ethan to be caught in the middle of this. Last night, my sister called again. She said, "You're going to regret this when you see the look on his face when you come back and show him pictures." I told her she was the one hurting him, not me, by turning this into some emotional weapon. She hung up on me. I've been sitting with this for days now. I keep going back and forth. Part of me wants to stick to my guns because this trip means so much to me and my fiancé. We've worked hard for it, and it's supposed to be our last big adventure before we get married. But another part of me worries that maybe I'm being too cold or unkind. I don't want to be the villain in my nephew's eyes. Some friends say my sister is being manipulative and entitled. Others say I could have handled it more gently by offering to bring back souvenirs or do a special FaceTime with Ethan while I'm there. I plan to do that anyway, but I doubt my sister will let him answer. I honestly don't know how this turned into such a family war. What started as a happy trip announcement has turned into people accusing me of being selfish, ungrateful, and anti-family. I'm tired of defending my right to go on vacation without a child. So, AITA for refusing to take my nephew to Disney? AITA for refusing to let my sister and her fiancé use my wedding venue after they got engaged at my wedding rehearsal dinner? I, 29F, got married 3 months ago to my husband, Jake, 31M. It was a small but elegant wedding at a vineyard my family has loved for years. It's beautiful, not overly commercialized, and my parents know the owners, so we got an incredible deal to book it 2 years in advance. My sister, Emily, 26F, and I have always been close. She's bubbly, outgoing, and the type of person everyone seems to love. I've always been more reserved, organized, and the planner of the family. We balance each other well, or so I thought. Jake and I spent almost 2 years planning this wedding. Everything was carefully chosen. The venue, the colors, the menu, the live band. I was excited but stressed, like any bride. Emily was my maid of honor, and I genuinely wanted her to enjoy the experience too. I included her in decisions, asked her opinion on dresses, flowers, even the seating chart. She was supportive, or at least I thought so. The rehearsal dinner was the night before the wedding, held at a small restaurant near the vineyard. About 40 people were there, family, close friends, wedding party. It was intimate, warm, and emotional. My dad gave a little speech about me growing up. Jake's mom talked about welcoming me to their family, and everyone was laughing, clinking glasses, hugging. Then, during dessert, Emily's boyfriend, Mark, 28M, stood up. I assumed he was going to make a toast or say something sweet about Jake and me. Instead, he said, "I know this is a special weekend for family and love, and I can't think of a better time to ask." He turned to Emily, pulled out a ring, and proposed. Everyone gasped, then started clapping. Emily started crying, of course said yes, and immediately there was cheering, photos, champagne. I sat there frozen. It felt like my ears were ringing. I glanced at Jake, and he looked just as shocked. It's not that I wasn't happy for her. I adore my sister and had known for months that she and Mark were serious, but the timing completely blindsided me. Suddenly the night was all about them. People were taking photos of Emily's ring, asking about dates, hugging them, congratulating them. The staff even brought out an extra bottle of champagne for the happy couple. I barely remember the rest of the night. I smiled, congratulated them, and went back to the hotel, trying not to cry, because it felt like my wedding had already been upstaged before it even happened. The next day, at the wedding itself, people kept bringing it up. My aunt made a toast to love being contagious in this family. Some of my coworkers asked Emily about her wedding plans. Even the photographer took a cute sister shot and asked Emily to show her ring for one picture. It felt like I had to share my wedding day spotlight, and I hated that I even cared. After the honeymoon, I had a calm but firm conversation with Emily. I told her that while I loved her and was happy she was engaged, I was deeply hurt that she and Mark chose that moment, my rehearsal dinner, for something so personal and attention-grabbing. She said she had no idea he was going to propose and that she was as surprised as everyone else. Mark, however, later admitted to my husband that he had asked my parents for permission earlier that week and they'd given their blessing, thinking it would be cute and memorable. That honestly made it worse. My parents didn't see the issue. They said, "It's all family," and it just doubled the joy that weekend. I tried to move on, but the resentment lingered. Fast forward to last month. Emily and Mark are now planning their wedding. They came to visit and told Jake and me excitedly that they were thinking of having it at the same vineyard where we got married. They said the place looked perfect in all our photos, and it felt special since that's where everything started. I was stunned. I told them I wasn't comfortable with them using the exact same venue, that it felt like they were trying to recreate our wedding, right down to the location that was supposed to be meaningful to Jake and me. Emily seemed hurt and said she didn't understand why it mattered. Mark said I was being territorial about a place I didn't even own. I told them point blank that it wasn't about ownership. It was about boundaries and respect. I said, "You already had your big engagement moment at my wedding weekend. Can't you at least let my venue be my own memory?" Emily started crying, saying I was making her feel like a thief for wanting something beautiful. A few days later, my mom called me, saying Emily had told her I forbade them from using the vineyard. My mom said I was making this bigger than it is, and that it would be such a sweet family tradition to both marry there. I told her it didn't feel sweet to me. It felt like my wedding was being copied and overshadowed again. My dad later texted that I should get over the competition mindset. Now Emily and Mark are furious, saying I'm holding a grudge over something that was never meant to hurt me. They even implied that if I really loved them, I'd be happy they wanted to celebrate love in the same way we did. But it doesn't feel flattering. It feels like every step of my wedding, the proposal disruption, the constant comparisons, now the venue, has been about them intruding on something that was supposed to be mine just once. Jake supports me completely, saying it's not about pettiness, but about boundaries and emotional respect. My parents, however, are taking Emily's side, and now it's causing real tension. We barely talk, and my mom told me Emily's been crying over how mean I've become. Part of me wonders if I should have just shrugged it off. It's not like the vineyard is exclusively mine. Maybe I'm being possessive. But another part of me can't shake how it all started, how my sister's engagement turned my rehearsal dinner into her spotlight, and now it feels like history repeating itself. So here I am, months later, still questioning myself. Am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister and her fiancé use my wedding venue after everything that happened? AITA for refusing to take my sister's kids trick-or-treating after she called me childish for celebrating Halloween? So this all went down last week, but the tension has been brewing for a long time. I, 27F, love Halloween. Love it. I've always been the kind of person who decorates my apartment, plans costumes months in advance, bakes themed cookies, and hosts small get-togethers for my friends. It's my favorite holiday because it's creative, silly, and nostalgic. My family, however, is mixed on it. My parents think it's cute, but my older sister, Erica, 35F, thinks it's ridiculous for adults to celebrate Halloween. Erica and I have never been super close. She's very serious, responsible, and practical, which is fine, but she tends to judge everyone else who doesn't live the same way. She got married young, had 2 kids, Ben, 8, and Sophie, 6, and is basically the mom who runs the PDA, packs homemade lunches, and manages her house like it's a small company. I respect that, truly. But she seems to think my life is frivolous because I'm single, live alone, and prioritize hobbies and friends. Anyway, this year I was beyond excited for Halloween. I planned a group costume with my friends. We were doing a haunted mansion theme, and I spent weeks putting together my ghostly bride outfit. I even hosted a pumpkin carving night. Erica rolled her eyes when she found out and said, "You're almost 30. Don't you think it's time to stop dressing up like a child?" I laughed it off, but it stung. Then, 2 days before Halloween, Erica called me in a panic. Her husband, Matt, had a work emergency that would keep him late on Halloween night, and she had an evening meeting for her volunteer board that she couldn't skip. She asked if I could take Ben and Sophie trick-or-treating. Now, I adore my niece and nephew. I babysit for them sometimes, and we get along great. But Halloween night was the one night I'd been looking forward to all month. My friends and I were going to costume bar crawl that I'd already bought tickets for, and I'd even taken the next day off work. I told her I couldn't because I had plans. Erica sighed and said, "You can wear your costume while you take them out. It'll be the same thing, just with the kids." I said, "It's really not the same. I've been planning this night for months." She got quiet, then said, "So you're choosing some childish party over helping out her family?" I told her that was unfair. She knew I wasn't just free that night. She said, "It's just Halloween. Adults don't need to celebrate it. You can go to parties any other time." That hit a nerve. I said, "You're asking me to drop something that matters to me because you think it shouldn't matter. That's not fair." She huffed and said she'd figure something out. Well, apparently, she ended up taking the kids herself and was miserable about it. She texted me a few passive-aggressive things like, "Hope your ghost party was worth it," and the kids were disappointed Aunt Jess couldn't come. The next day, my mom called me to say Erica was upset and that maybe I could have been the bigger person. I asked Mom if she knew Erica had insulted me for even caring about Halloween, and she just sighed and said, "You know how she is." She's just stressed. Now it's been a week, and Erica is still cold toward me. She hasn't answered my texts, even when I tried sending a cute photo from Halloween night with the caption, "Hope the kids had fun." I feel guilty, but I also feel angry. It's like she doesn't respect that my plans are just as valid as hers. Here's where it gets complicated. Ben apparently told me, well, through my mom, that he was sad I wasn't there because Aunt Jess always makes holidays fun. That made me tear up. I don't ever want to let the kids down, but I also don't want to be guilt-tripped into dropping everything because Erica deems my hobbies unimportant. I've been replaying it all in my head. Should I have canceled on my friends? Probably they'd have understood. But why should I have to? My sister treats anything I do that isn't serious as childish. A few years ago, she made similar comments when I decorated my apartment for Christmas before Thanksgiving. Said I was acting like a teenager. It feels like she thinks adulthood means losing every spark of joy. To be honest, it's been an ongoing issue between us. She makes little digs whenever I mention my social life. Well, I got a cat last year. She said, "Guess that's your replacement for a real family." When I mentioned taking a solo trip to Scotland, she said, "Must be nice not to have responsibilities." It's exhausting trying to defend every choice that doesn't align with hers. Part of me wonders if she resents that I have freedom she doesn't. But instead of saying that, she disguises it as moral superiority. Like, she's the real adult, and I'm just playing dress up. After all this, my mom suggested I extend an olive branch and offer to take the kids next year to make peace. But I don't want this to become a pattern where Erica belittles me, then expects me to help when it's convenient. I did text Erica again yesterday, saying I hoped she and the kids had fun and that I'd love to do something fall-themed with them soon. Maybe a pumpkin patch or movie night. No response. I told one of my friends about it, and she said, "You're not the babysitter." She's mad because you didn't let her devalue your plans. But now that the dust is settled, I still feel that ache of guilt, like I failed to show up for my family. I can't shake the feeling that no matter what I did, she'd have found a reason to look down on me. If I'd said yes, she'd have probably joked about me finally doing something mature. If I said no, which I did, I'm selfish. So Reddit, am I really the asshole here for choosing my own plans over taking my sister's kids trick-or-treating? Especially when she clearly thinks Halloween is beneath me anyway. Because deep down, I think this is less about Halloween and more about her not respecting that my time, interests, and boundaries matter just as much as hers. But part of me worries I've crossed into being petty. Every time I replay her voice saying, "It's just Halloween" in my head, I feel my blood boil. Maybe to her it's just Halloween, but to me it's one of the few times I get to feel genuinely happy, creative, and surrounded by people who get it. And I'm tired of apologizing for that. So yeah, that's where I'm stuck. Did I let my family down? Or did I just finally refuse to let my sister walk all over my joy? AITA for refusing to let my brother stay with me after he got kicked out of his apartment? I, 28M, live in a small one-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city. I worked really hard to get where I am financially, and I live a fairly minimalist lifestyle. I don't have a lot of furniture or decorations, but I like my space to feel calm and organized. My brother, Alex, 26M, has always been kind of a free spirit, which has often meant he's messy, impulsive, and terrible at planning ahead. I've tried to support him over the years, but I've also had to set boundaries because he has a history of taking advantage of people's generosity. About a month ago, Alex called me in a panic. He had just been evicted from his apartment for not paying rent for 3 months, and he had nowhere to go. He said he'd exhausted all options with friends and that he didn't want to go to a shelter. He asked if he could stay with me just for a little while until he figured things out. At first, I felt guilty for even hesitating, but then I remembered how many times he had stayed with friends and overstayed his welcome, often leaving them frustrated or worse off than before. I told him that I couldn't have him stay with me. I explained that my apartment was very small, that I had a strict budget and schedule, and that I was working on some projects that required a lot of focus and quiet. I also reminded him that this wasn't the first time he had faced financial trouble and that he needed to take steps to be more responsible rather than relying on me. He started begging and crying on the phone, saying he had nowhere else to go and that he was really desperate. I felt terrible hearing him like that, but I stuck to my decision. Alex didn't take it well. He started sending me long messages accusing me of being selfish, unsupportive, and cold-hearted. He reminded me that when I moved into my apartment, I had relied on our parents for a lot of financial help, implying that I owed him for family loyalty. He even mentioned that I had stayed with friends in college when I was broke, which is true, but I never stayed for more than a few nights and always helped out in some way. I tried to explain that circumstances were different now, but he kept insisting that family should always come first. A week later, he called our parents and told them I was refusing to help him, and they called me as well. They were disappointed, but said they understood my point of view. They reminded me that I could still help in other ways, like giving him a small loan or helping him look for a cheap apartment. I agreed to help him with those things, but I refused to let him move in. I even offered to store some of his things temporarily if he could find somewhere else to stay. But he rejected that, saying it wasn't enough. Since then, the situation has become tense. Our mutual friends have heard about it, and a few of them have asked me if I'm being unreasonable. Some of them side with me, saying that setting boundaries is healthy, while others say I should just let him crash on my couch for a bit. I haven't spoken to Alex directly in a few weeks, and I've seen some social media posts from him implying that I abandoned him and that I'm heartless. I don't feel proud of the way I handled it, because I do care about him and I know he's struggling. But I also feel like if I had let him move in, it would have caused serious stress in my own life. My apartment isn't built for long-term guests, and I know myself, I would have ended up resenting him, and it might have damaged our relationship permanently. I also worry that giving in now would set a precedent, and the next time he struggles, he might just assume I'll always bail him out. I've tried to stay empathetic while maintaining boundaries. I've helped him make a list of affordable apartments, offered to pay part of the deposit, and suggested ways he could find temporary housing through community resources. But he keeps rejecting any solutions that don't involve me letting him live in my space. I'm starting to question whether I'm being too rigid. Should I just let him stay for a week or two? Or am I right to prioritize my mental health and stability? I really don't want to lose my relationship with him, but I also don't want to enable a cycle that's been happening for years. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother stay with me, even though he's been evicted and has nowhere else to go. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for confronting my sister over her inheritance expectations and causing a huge family fallout. So this is going to be long because the situation is complicated. I, 32M, am the middle child of my family. I have an older sister, Sarah, 35F, and a younger brother, Mike, 28M. Our parents have always been fairly well off, but nothing extravagant. They own a house in a suburban area, a couple of investment properties, and have some savings for retirement. Growing up, I was closer to my brother than my sister. Sarah and I have always had a competitive relationship, even if it wasn't outright hostile. It was just that she's the type to expect things to go her way, and I've always been more laid back and practical. About 6 months ago, my mom passed away unexpectedly from a heart condition. It was obviously devastating for all of us. My dad, John, 62M, has been struggling emotionally since then. In the aftermath, we started talking about dividing my mom's estate. My mom didn't leave a will, which I know complicates things. Legally, everything is going through my dad right now, and he wants us all to be fair about it. Here's where it starts to get tricky. Right after the funeral, Sarah casually mentioned in a group chat that she expected to get the house my parents live in once my dad is ready to downsize. She said, "It's only fair since I was the one who helped mom the most these past few years. Plus, I've been living closer and have helped dad more with everything." My brother and I didn't say anything at first, because we figured it was just her venting or trying to express what she thought was fair. But then it escalated. Over the next couple of weeks, Sarah started sending my dad messages about making sure things are equitable and asking him to sign over the house in her name once he moves out. She even suggested she'd handle selling some of the investment properties and that we shouldn't worry about getting equal shares. She framed it as, "I'm doing this to make it easier for everyone." At first, I try to be calm and rational. I sent her a message saying, "Hey, I get that you've helped more with Dad recently, and that's great, but Mom's estate needs to be divided fairly between the three of us. We can all discuss this openly instead of making assumptions." She replied that I was being petty and that I was holding the family back from moving forward. I didn't respond after that. Then things got worse. During one of the family Zoom calls with my dad, Sarah outright said, "It's only logical that the house goes to me. I'm the only one actually helping Dad now, and you guys are both far away. Why would you even want it?" My dad looked uncomfortable and didn't say anything. I snapped. I told her that she was being manipulative and entitled, and that we needed to respect Mom's memory by being fair and transparent instead of trying to claim things for ourselves. She went off, accusing me of attacking her and being selfish. After the call, our dad pulled me aside and asked me to try to be nicer to your sister. I explained that I wasn't trying to be mean. I just didn't think it was fair for her to assume she gets the house without consulting us. He seemed torn, but didn't push back. The situation has only escalated since then. Sarah has started excluding me from texts about the estate and making passive-aggressive posts on Facebook about siblings being greedy. She also sent a long email to my dad listing everything she feels entitled to, including some investments I didn't even know were part of the estate. My brother tried to mediate, saying we should all just wait for Dad to decide, but Sarah refused to listen. Here's the part one think might make me the asshole. I finally decided to respond firmly. I sent an email to both my dad and my siblings stating that if we couldn't have an honest discussion where everyone's concerns were addressed, I would hire a lawyer to make sure the estate was divided fairly according to the law. I also included that I felt Sarah's approach was selfish and manipulative and that it was causing unnecessary stress. Sarah exploded. She called me a terrible sibling and accused me of threatening the family over money. She hasn't spoken to me since, and my dad is upset because he thinks I'm making things worse. My brother has been trying to stay neutral, but confided in me that he agrees I was right to set boundaries, though he wishes I hadn't gone nuclear with the email. The family dynamic has been strained ever since. My dad avoids talking about the estate entirely. My sister refuses to communicate with me, and our once-close family gatherings are now tense. Friends and extended family are starting to notice. I genuinely feel like I was trying to protect the fairness of my mom's estate and prevent my sister from taking advantage of the situation. On the other hand, I recognize that my email was blunt and could have been seen as threatening. I didn't intend to hurt my dad or my brother, but I can see how the message might have come across as aggressive. So, Reddit, AITA for confronting my sister and threatening legal action over the inheritance, even though I was trying to ensure fairness. This story is about family conflict, inheritance disputes, and sibling rivalry, which often get high engagement on Reddit due to relatability and emotional stakes. It's 6,624 characters long, fitting your requirements. If you want, I can also draft a sequel version with a cliffhanger-style twist that could really blow up in the AITA subreddit. It would build suspense while keeping it within 6K, 7K characters. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after finding out I wasn't invited? I, 32F, have a younger sister, Rachel, 28F, who is getting married next spring. We've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, Rachel was the golden child, the pretty, outgoing one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. I was the responsible one, the one who helped with chores, kept my grades up, and got a job in college to pay my own bills. I don't resent her for being who she is, but it's fair to say I've always been the background character in her story. When Rachel got engaged last year to her fiancé, Mark, 30M, everyone in the family was thrilled. I was genuinely happy for her. I helped her look at venues, talk her through budgeting, and even offered to help with some of the costs because I was in a better financial position than she was. I work in tech, have no kids, and own my house outright. Rachel, on the other hand, works part-time as a yoga instructor while Mark is finishing his master's degree. Money's been tight for them. About 6 months ago, our parents called a family meeting to discuss wedding finances. Rachel and Mark had their hearts set on a fancy vineyard wedding that would cost more than any of us expected. Our parents offered to contribute $10,000, but the venue alone was double that. Rachel looked crushed. I felt bad and, against my better judgment, offered to cover the remaining $15,000. Everyone was stunned. Rachel cried and hugged me, saying I was saving her dream wedding. My parents called me so generous, and I felt good about helping her. Fast forward to last month. I hadn't heard much about the wedding planning in a while. Every time I asked Rachel about details, she'd say, "Oh, don't worry about it yet," or "We're still finalizing the guest list." I assumed I'd get an invitation eventually. Then, while having brunch with one of Rachel's friends, Sarah, she casually mentioned how awkward it was that I wasn't going. I laughed it off and said she must be mistaken. Sarah went quiet, then admitted Rachel told everyone that I wanted to sit this one out because I didn't like big social events. I was floored. I called Rachel immediately, and she tried to deflect. Finally, she admitted that she and Mark decided not to invite me because they didn't want drama. Apparently, Mark feels like I'm too opinionated and intimidating. He thinks I make Rachel feel small and that my presence would shift attention. I was stunned. I reminded her that I paid for half her wedding. Rachel said, "Well, it's not about the money. You said you wanted me to have my dream day, and this is part of it." I told her if I wasn't invited, I wasn't paying another cent. That's when things blew up. She accused me of weaponizing money and said I was trying to control her wedding. Our parents sided with her. They said I already made a commitment and that it would be cruel to back out now when deposits have been made. They told me to be the bigger person and let Rachel have her day without tension. I told them that if I'm not welcome, my money isn't either. I immediately contacted the venue and the vendors I had paid directly, explained that I would no longer be funding the event, and requested refunds where possible. Rachel found out and lost it. She showed up at my house in tears, calling me selfish and saying I'd ruined everything. Mark was behind her, saying I proved his point about me being controlling. I'll admit I wasn't calm. I told them both that they'd taken advantage of me and that if they didn't want me at their wedding, they could pay for it themselves. Rachel screamed that she couldn't afford it, that everything was already planned, and that I was humiliating her. She said she'd never forgive me. Now the whole family is split. My parents think I overreacted and should have just let it go for the sake of peace. They're also angry because some deposits weren't refundable and Rachel lost money she can't replace. My aunt and cousins, on the other hand, think Rachel was out of line and that I had every right to withdraw my support. Here's where I'm torn. Part of me wonders if I was too harsh. I know weddings can make people emotional, and maybe she just didn't handle things well. But the other part of me can't get past the fact that she deliberately lied about me not wanting to go, then expected me to quietly bankroll everything. Rachel has since posted vague things on social media about toxic family members and money not buying love. People have reached out to me privately, confused because they thought I was still involved. I've stayed silent publicly, but it's getting messy. My mom keeps calling, saying Rachel's been crying every day, that I owe it to her as a sister to fix things. She even suggested I attend quietly, just for appearances, even though Rachel never actually invited me. I asked my mom how she expected me to attend quietly when my presence was supposedly the problem in the first place. She had no answer. Part of me wonders if Rachel ever truly intended to invite me. Looking back, there were little red flags. Times she'd talk about keeping things intimate or joke about me stealing her thunder. Once, at a family dinner, she made a snide comment about how I always look like I'm running a company meeting at social events. I brushed it off at the time, but now it all feels deliberate. What really hurts is that I genuinely wanted to do something kind for her. I never offered the money to gain leverage or control anything. I just wanted to support her because she's my sister, and I thought this would bring us closer. Instead, it feels like she saw me as a walking ATM. My best friend says Rachel is manipulative and used me until she didn't need me anymore. My coworker thinks family loyalty means sometimes you take the high road, even if it feels unfair. I keep replaying everything, wondering if pulling out the money was the point where I went too far. As of now, Rachel and Mark are scrambling to find a smaller venue they can afford. My parents are pressuring me to reconsider, but I'm standing firm. I told them I'd happily support Rachel emotionally, but financially, I'm done. Still, I can't shake the guilt. I keep asking myself if I could have handled it differently, if maybe I should have just let her have a wedding, even if I wasn't there, just to avoid all this chaos. But every time I think that, I picture her telling people I didn't want to come, and it makes my stomach twist. So here I am, months before what should have been a happy family event, now barely speaking to my sister and being painted as the villain. AITA for refusing to pay for a wedding I'm not invited to? AITA for refusing to let my brother and his fiancée move into my house even though I don't need all that space. So I, 32F, own my own home. It's nothing extravagant, but it's mine. I bought it 5 years ago after years of saving, working 2 jobs, and living in crappy apartments. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in a quiet neighborhood. 1 bedroom is my office since I work from home, and the other is a guest room. My younger brother, Matt, 29M, got engaged last year to his fiancée, Kayla, 27F. They're getting married next summer. Matt has always been the golden child in our family. I don't mean that sarcastically. Our parents adore him. He's charming, funny, and has that kind of luck where things just seem to work out for him. I love him, but it's always been a bit of a sore spot that my accomplishments are treated like, oh, that's nice, while others are celebrated with cake and balloons. Anyway, Matt and Kayla currently rent a 1-bedroom apartment. Their lease is ending soon, and rent prices in our city have skyrocketed. A few weeks ago, they asked if they could come over to talk about something important. I had a feeling I knew where it was going. They sat me down and explained that they're trying to save money for their wedding and a house. They said they were hoping they could move in with me for just a year so they could save more aggressively. They offered to pay some rent, but when I asked how much, they said like $300 a month. My mortgage alone is over $2,000, not counting utilities, insurance, and maintenance. I asked why they didn't look for a cheaper rental or move in with our parents. They both made faces and said my parents' house was too small and that there's no privacy. For context, my parents have a perfectly fine 3-bedroom house. Kayla said they wouldn't feel comfortable sharing a bathroom with family. Then Kayla said, but your place has a guest room and an extra bathroom, so it would be perfect for us. I told them I wasn't comfortable with that. I like living alone, I work from home, and my house is my quiet space. Matt immediately looked offended and said, so you're seriously going to turn your own brother away when you have 2 spare rooms? I said one of those rooms is my office, and the other is for guests who visit, not long-term tenants. Kayla said they'd basically be like guests, just longer term. I told them no, I'm sorry, but I don't want to share my home. Matt started getting angry and said that I was being selfish. He said family should help family, and that it wasn't like they were strangers. Kayla chimed in that I was lucky enough to have a house, and that most people our age can't even dream of owning. She said it was greedy to have all that space to myself when they were struggling. I told them I worked hard for this, and I don't owe anyone my space just because I have it. That was apparently the wrong thing to say because Matt stood up and said, wow, guess we know what kind of sister you really are. They left after that. Since then, it's been a full-blown family drama. My mom called me the next day, saying Matt told her I refused to help them when they were in need. I explained the whole situation, but my mom said she thought I could at least let them stay for 6 months. She said, it's not like they're asking for a handout. They'd pay rent. When I told her they only offered $300, she said, well, you don't need the money, so why does it matter how much? I asked her why they couldn't stay with her, and she said, because we don't have the space. I reminded her that her house has the same number of bedrooms as mine. She got defensive and said it's different because she and Dad are older and need their privacy. Apparently, Matt has been telling everyone that I kicked him out before he even got the chance to move in. Our aunt texted me saying she's disappointed in how cold I've become. Even my cousin, who I barely talk to, messaged me on Facebook saying family should stick together. Meanwhile, I've had to block Matt and Kayla for a bit because they started posting passive-aggressive stuff online about selfish people who hoard wealth while others struggle. They even posted a picture of my house once, captioned, Some people don't know what it means to share blessings. I reported it and it got taken down, but I was furious. What makes this worse is that before all this, I'd actually considered letting them stay for maybe a few months if they'd been polite about it. But the entitlement just turned me off completely. My dad, who's usually pretty quiet, called me a few days ago to mediate. He said, "You know your brother's having a hard time. You've always been independent, but he needs help. Can't you just do it for family?" I told him it's not about family, it's about boundaries. I shouldn't have to rearrange my life and give up my peace just because someone else made different financial choices. He said, "You've always been stubborn. You'll regret it when you realize family is all you have." That stung. But then I remembered that when I was saving for my house, no one offered me help. When I was eating ramen to pay off debt, no one said family should help family then. Last week, Matt and Kayla came to my house again without warning. They said they wanted to talk things out. I told them I was busy, but Kayla said, "We'll just make this quick." She then said they'd talked to a financial advisor who told them that if they could live rent-free for a year, they could afford a down payment by next summer. I asked, "Wait, rent-free?" And Matt said, "Yeah, because paying you anything would defeat the purpose." I just started laughing. I couldn't help it. They both got offended again, and I said, "You've got to be kidding me." I told them to leave and that I didn't want this conversation again. Matt shouted, "You're unbelievable," as they left. I locked the door and cried afterward. Not because I doubted myself, but because it hurts that my own family can't respect my boundaries. Now, my parents aren't speaking to me. My mom said she's ashamed of how I treated my brother. My dad says I made my choice. Even my grandma, who usually takes my side, said I could have been more compassionate. I know I could technically let them stay, but I don't want to live with anyone right now, especially not two people who have already disrespected me. I worked so hard for my peace, and I'm not giving it up because people think I should feel guilty for having what they don't. Still, the guilt trips are getting to me. I keep wondering if I really am being too rigid, or if I should have at least compromised. Maybe I could have said they could stay for 2 months, or set stricter conditions. But then again, I know that once they moved in, getting them out would be a nightmare. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother and his fiancée move in with me, even though I don't need all that space. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée live with us, even though she claims she's family now. So this is going to be long, and I need to preface it by saying I have a pretty tight-knit family, but I also value my personal space and boundaries a lot. I, 29F, live in a 3-bedroom apartment with my younger sister, Maya, 26F. We've lived together for the past 4 years, and it's worked well because we both have similar schedules, hobbies, and habits. My brother, Alex, 31M, has always been the kind of guy who expects things to revolve around him, but he's been my brother since birth, so I've tried to keep the peace whenever possible. That being said, he recently got engaged to someone named Lila, 28F, and things have started to unravel in ways I didn't anticipate. About 3 months ago, Alex called me one afternoon, sounding unusually frantic. He told me that Lila's apartment lease was being terminated because of some clerical mistake and that she had nowhere to go. Without really giving me time to think, he said, "You have to let Lila stay with you temporarily. She's family now." I immediately felt my stomach drop. This was the first time Alex and Lila had ever stayed at our place, and the thought of adding someone new into our carefully maintained living environment, even temporarily, was stressful. I said, "Alex, that's a big ask. Maya and I have routines, schedules, and bills that she doesn't know about. Can we talk about this?" Alex insisted, saying she's family. She won't be here long, just until I sort out her place. I asked him what long meant, and he said a couple of weeks tops. Normally, I would have tried to compromise, but something about his tone made me pause. I had a feeling a couple of weeks could easily turn into months if I didn't set boundaries. I told him I'd think about it, and he seemed to take it as a yes. When Maya got home, I explained the situation. She was immediately skeptical, asking me if we even knew Lila well enough to let her into our home. I admitted that we'd met Lila maybe 5 times in total at family dinners, and she had never stayed over, and that we weren't comfortable with it. Maya said, "It's one thing to invite someone over for dinner. It's another to turn our home into a temporary apartment for them." I agreed. So I texted Alex back that we couldn't host Lila. I explained that our apartment is set up for 2 people and adding a third person, especially someone we barely know, would be disruptive and could create tension. I suggested he look into short-term rentals or ask one of his friends if she could stay with them. I tried to phrase it gently, but I was firm. Alex responded almost immediately, and I could feel the tone change. He said, "I can't believe you're doing this. She's my fiancée. You're supposed to support family. How can you turn your back on her when she needs you?" I explained again that supporting family doesn't mean we have to compromise our mental health and living situation. He started to argue that if we didn't let her stay, we were breaking the bond of family before it even begins, and that I was being selfish. I tried to remain calm, but the conversation escalated. Alex sent multiple texts over the next day, including one that read, "Maya probably hates me too, doesn't she? Typical of your selfish family." Maya and I compared notes and realized he was attempting emotional manipulation by framing us as villains. Then Lila called me herself. She sounded polite, but also a little pushy. She said, "Alex told me you might not want to stay. I just want to say, I don't want to be a burden. I'm not asking for much, just a place to sleep until I find somewhere permanent. I promise I'll keep to myself." I appreciated her politeness, but reminded her that our apartment wasn't suitable for a third person, and that it would be unfair to both of us. I even offered some resources for short-term rentals. She said, "I guess I understand, but Alex is really upset. He feels like you're rejecting me personally." I tried to reassure her that it wasn't personal. It was logistics and boundaries. Things blew up a week later when Alex came over unannounced. He parked in front of our building and waited outside while texting me that Lila would be staying regardless of our decision. I told him firmly that this was not acceptable and that he needed to leave. He got louder, started raising his voice, and said, "You're really going to choose your precious little apartment over your own family?" I told him I loved him, but we were not allowing anyone to move in uninvited. Eventually, he stormed off, saying he would find another place, but making it clear he was angry. The aftermath has been messy. My parents have taken Alex's side to some extent, saying we should welcome the fiancé into the family. I explained to them our perspective, and they seem to understand, but still hint that we could have been nicer. Alex has gone silent toward me, and Lila has unfollowed me on social media after our polite discussion. Maya supports me completely, but I feel guilty that this has caused tension within the larger family. I've been second-guessing myself. On one hand, I feel confident that our boundaries are valid. On the other hand, I worry that refusing to let Lila stay makes me look unkind or unsupportive. I really tried to offer alternatives, and I've been polite the whole time, but the fallout is stressing me out. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée live with us, even though she claims she's family now. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 28F, have always been close to my younger sister, Lily, 25F. Growing up, we shared everything from clothes to secrets, and I considered her not just my sister but one of my best friends. Our parents passed away when she was 16 and I was 19, so a lot of our bond was built on navigating life together without them. I've always been protective of her, sometimes to the point of being overbearing, but I thought that was normal for sisters so close in age. About a year ago, Lily started dating a guy named Mark, 27M. At first, I liked him. He seemed charming, funny, and ambitious. But very quickly, I started noticing behaviors that bothered me. He would make small digs at Lily in front of me, little comments about how she's too sensitive or how she should be more ambitious. At first, I dismissed them, thinking maybe he was joking or that I was overreacting. But then it escalated. He would criticize her spending choices, suggest she shouldn't hang out with friends too much, and once even tried to guilt her into not taking a job in another city because it would mess up their future together. I tried talking to Lily about it gently, framing my concerns as wanting her happiness, not attacking Mark. She would brush it off and say, "He's just trying to help me. I know him better than anyone." I wanted to respect her agency, but I also started noticing how anxious she seemed around him and how she would constantly seek validation for minor decisions. Fast forward to the engagement. Lily was over the moon and asked me to be her maid of honor. I was excited, but the stress started immediately. Mark insisted on a very traditional wedding with specific rules. No loud music, no unplanned guests, no extravagant dresses for bridesmaids. He also demanded that Lily not let anyone speak at the reception except him, her parents, who were deceased, and me. I found this odd and controlling, but again, I tried to keep my mouth shut. Then came the invitation list. Mark made it clear that he didn't want any of my friends at the wedding, which seemed absurd. He told Lily it would be awkward if my friends attended because they're too loud and opinionated. I tried to talk to Lily about it, but she insisted he was just trying to avoid drama and that I was imagining things. The breaking point came a month before the wedding. I went to their house to help Lily with some DIY decorations. Mark was there and immediately started criticizing how I was folding napkins, making jokes about my perfectionist nature, and commenting on how I must be jealous of his ability to organize. I laughed it off, but he kept escalating, making snide remarks about my career choices and comparing me to his friends in a way that was obviously meant to be belittling. Lily didn't defend me. She looked uncomfortable, but didn't say anything. I left feeling humiliated and upset. I spent the next week thinking about whether I should still go to the wedding. I tried talking to Lily one last time, explaining how Mark's behavior had made me feel unwelcome and disrespected, and that it seemed controlling and toxic. I told her that I loved her and wanted to celebrate her, but I couldn't ignore the way he treated me and the effect it had on her. She accused me of trying to ruin her wedding and said I was being selfish by focusing on myself instead of her special day. After a lot of soul-searching, I sent her a message saying I wouldn't be attending the wedding. I explained my reasons, emphasizing my concern for her well-being and my inability to be in a space where I felt demeaned and unwelcome. I offered to celebrate with her privately afterward, just her and me, but she hasn't responded positively. She told our mutual friends I chose Mark over my own family and that I made everything about me. Now, several people are calling me selfish. My friends are divided. Some agree with me that Mark seems controlling, others think I overreacted and that I should have just gone for my sister's sake. I've been getting texts from extended family telling me to put aside differences for the wedding and that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. I honestly feel torn. I don't want to cut ties with Lily, but I also can't pretend everything is fine when it isn't. I want to make it clear that I'm not trying to manipulate or control my sister. I've supported her choices for years and have always tried to be there for her. I feel like Mark's behavior crosses a line, and I can't be part of something that makes me feel belittled and complicit in enabling it. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? Character count, 6,233 if you want. I can draft an even longer, more detailed version that hits closer to 7,000 characters, including more family dynamics, past incidents, and subtle tension leading up to the wedding. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to take my sister's emergency baby after she faked being infertile to get our parents' sympathy? So, I, 29F, am the middle child of 3. My older sister, Claire, 33F, has always been the golden child. Straight A's, prom queen, married young to her college sweetheart, and has always managed to make everything in life look like a Hallmark movie. Our younger brother, Dylan, 26M, is the easygoing one who stays out of the drama. I'm the middle. I went to art school instead of law school, live in a small apartment with my boyfriend, 30M, and I'm the one who usually gets called unreliable because I don't show up to every family event with a Pinterest-worthy casserole. Anyway, Claire and her husband, Mark, 35M, started trying for kids about 5 years ago. When they didn't get pregnant after a year, Claire went full social media mode with it, posting about infertility struggles, sharing IVF fundraisers, making emotional speeches about the pain of a woman's empty womb at family dinners. It was intense. I'm not mocking infertility. I can't imagine how hard that must be. But Claire made it performative. She constantly compared her pain to other people's lives, implying none of us could understand real suffering. Then about 2 years ago, she announced she was pregnant after a miracle. Our parents were over the moon. They treated it like divine intervention. I was genuinely happy for her. The pregnancy was textbook Claire. She had a professional maternity photo shoot every month, threw herself a fertility warrior goddess baby shower, and made sure everyone knew this was a miracle baby. The baby, named Grace, was born healthy and perfect. I visited them, brought gifts, took pictures, and honestly thought maybe motherhood would mellow Claire out. Spoiler, it did not. Fast forward to about a month ago. Claire called me at 2 a.m. I thought someone died. She was sobbing uncontrollably, saying she couldn't do this anymore, and that I needed to come get Grace for a few days. I was half asleep and terrified, so I jumped in the car and drove over. When I got there, she looked totally fine, not hysterical, just tired and dramatic like usual. Grace was asleep in the crib. Claire said she and Mark were having serious marital problems and needed a mental health break. I agreed to take the baby for a weekend. A weekend turned into a week, then another. Claire didn't check in much except to send me long messages about how this separation was making her realize she wasn't sure she even wanted to be a mother. She said being a mom felt like a cage she built out of other people's expectations. I felt bad for her, but I also had to keep my life running. My boyfriend and I both work full-time, and taking care of an 18-month-old was no joke. Then last week, she and Mark invited my parents and me to dinner to talk. I thought maybe they were reconciling or getting counseling. Nope. Over dinner, Claire announced that they had made the mature decision to separate and that she wanted me to adopt Grace temporarily or permanently if that feels right. She said this in the same tone someone would use to ask for a favor watering plants. My parents just stared at her like deer in headlights. I asked what she meant by temporarily. She said she wanted to explore herself, maybe travel, maybe go off the grid for a while. I thought it was a joke. I said, "Claire, you can't just give away your baby because you want to go to Bali." She got defensive, saying I was judging her for not wanting to live a lie anymore. Mark sat there quietly, nodding along, like he'd already made peace with abandoning their child to me. Then, and here's where it gets insane, she admitted she lied about being infertile years ago. Apparently, she exaggerated it to get attention and to make her eventual pregnancy seem more miraculous. She even said, "Honestly, it just brought the family closer." Everyone was so supportive. I don't regret it. I was speechless. My mom started crying. My dad looked ready to explode. Claire said she didn't want Grace growing up in a toxic household of lies and resentment, which she created, and insisted I was the only one calm and grounded enough to raise her daughter. I told her absolutely not. I said I loved Grace, but I wasn't going to legally or emotionally take on her child because she wanted to find herself. Claire called me selfish, said I never step up for family, and accused me of abandoning her daughter. My mom tried to suggest maybe I could help for a few months while Claire got therapy, but I said no. If I took Grace, even temporarily, I knew I'd be stuck with her indefinitely. Since that dinner, my parents have been pressuring me nonstop. They say they're too old to raise a toddler full-time and that it's just until Claire gets her head together. Claire has apparently been telling extended family that I refuse to rescue her baby from neglect, which makes me sound like a monster. Some relatives are sending me guilt messages about how family is everything. Meanwhile, Mark moved out of state for work, leaving Claire to figure it out, which she's interpreting as another reason she can't possibly parent right now. Last night, Claire showed up unannounced at my apartment with Grace, a diaper bag, and a notarized letter saying I had temporary guardianship. She said she couldn't stay one more night and left before I could even argue. My boyfriend told me to call the police or Child Protective Services because this is literally child abandonment, but part of me just felt sick. Grace was crying, confused, clinging to me. I ended up keeping her overnight, then called my parents this morning and told them to come get her. They did, reluctantly, but now they're furious, saying I traumatized Grace by bouncing her around. Now the whole family's split. Half think Claire is unstable and needs help. The other half thinks I should have stepped up for Grace because blood is blood. My boyfriend says I did the right thing, but even I feel awful. I love my niece, but I never asked to be her stand-in parent. Claire's meltdown, the lies about infertility, the manipulation, it's all too much. But seeing Grace's face when they took her from my apartment broke my heart. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to take my sister's baby after she tried to dump her on me, and then accused me of not being family enough. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after his fiancée made me take a humility test. I, 28F, have always had a weird relationship with my older brother, Mark, 31M. Growing up, he was the golden child, straight A's, star athlete, parents worshipped him. I wasn't bad by any means, but I was the artsy one, which in my family basically meant the one wasting potential. Despite that, Mark and I got along okay as adults, at least until he met his fiancée, Vanessa, 29F. Vanessa is one of those people who manages to be charming in a way that feels rehearsed. She's beautiful, charismatic, and has this whole wellness guru thing going on. She sells lifestyle courses online about authentic living and emotional accountability. My parents adore her. I never had a problem with her personally, but she's always treated me like I'm a project, constantly suggesting growth challenges or confidence exercises whenever we talk. When Mark and Vanessa got engaged last year, I was genuinely happy for them. The wedding was set for next month, and I'd already bought a dress, booked a hotel, and even agreed to help with decorations. Everything was fine until about 3 weeks ago, when Vanessa called me out of the blue with what she described as a special opportunity. She said she was organizing a pre-wedding bonding retreat for the bridal party and close family members. It would be a weekend at some rustic cabin where we connect emotionally through group activities. I was skeptical, but said I'd think about it. Then she added, there will also be a small humility assessment. Nothing invasive, just something I do to help identify emotional resistance before major life events. I asked what that meant, and she said it was a trust exercise where participants would confront ego-driven behaviors. The phrasing was weird, but again, she's into all that pseudotherapy stuff, so I just kind of brushed it off. When the retreat weekend arrived, I went because I didn't want to be difficult. There were 10 of us. The bridal party, Mark, me, and a few close friends. The first day was harmless enough, journaling, yoga, some group discussions about gratitude. But on the second night, Vanessa announced it was time for the humility test. She handed everyone an envelope with personalized instructions inside. Mine said, your challenge is to serve others for the next 24 hours without speaking unless spoken to. You will also perform 3 acts of selfless service chosen by the group. It felt patronizing, but I went along for the first hour or so. Then the acts of service started. One bridesmaid told me to clean the kitchen after dinner as an offering. Another asked me to give her a foot massage because it would teach surrender. I tried to laugh it off, but it got more uncomfortable when Mark told me that resisting the process would prove Vanessa right about my defensiveness. Something snapped. I told them all I wasn't doing any more of this nonsense, and that if they wanted a maid, they could hire one. Vanessa immediately started crying and said I was rejecting the collective healing experience. Mark pulled me aside and said I was embarrassing him. I packed my stuff and left early. The next morning, I got a long message from Vanessa saying I'd failed the humility test and that she wasn't sure she wanted me at the wedding unless I apologized and demonstrated emotional accountability. I was stunned. I told her that her test was manipulative and cultish, and that if she didn't want me there, fine. I figured that was the end of it, but then my mom called. She said Vanessa told the whole family I refused to participate in a simple family bonding activity and that I made a scene. Mom begged me to just apologize to keep the peace because Mark was apparently devastated that I'd walked out on the family. I said no. I wasn't going to grovel because my brother's fiancée wanted to play life coach with everyone. Now my parents are furious, saying I'm ruining the wedding by creating tension. My dad even suggested I skip it if I can't be civil. So I told him I would skip it. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've been uninvited officially. Vanessa sent me a very long message about protecting her energetic space and maintaining harmony on her special day. I haven't replied, but now Mark reached out. He said he misses me and wishes I'd just apologized so things could go back to normal. He said Vanessa was only trying to help and that she's been stressed planning the wedding. When I said she humiliated me, he told me I was being dramatic and that it was just a silly exercise. I I told him that if it was so silly, he wouldn't be disinviting his own sister over it. He said he didn't want to, but Vanessa felt unsafe around me now because I lashed out. I asked if he really believed that, and he said he didn't know what to believe anymore. Then he hung up. Now my parents are back on my case, saying I'm being stubborn, and that family means sometimes you swallow your pride. I honestly don't think I did anything wrong. I wasn't cruel. I didn't insult anyone. I just refused to be part of something demeaning. But I also feel guilty because Mark's my only sibling, and missing his wedding feels like a point of no return. Some friends think I should have just played along for the weekend to keep peace. Others say Vanessa sounds manipulative and that I did the right thing by standing my ground. So here I am, a month before the wedding, estranged from my brother and painted as the selfish troublemaker. AITA for refusing to take part in my brother's fiancé's humility test and skipping the wedding as a result. AITA for refusing to let my husband's family move into our house after he invited them without asking me. I, 32F, have been married to my husband, Daniel, 34M, for 5 years. We've been together for almost 8. We bought our first house together 2 years ago, and it was a massive milestone for both of us. We saved for years, cut down on expenses, and worked extra hours to afford it. The house isn't huge, but it's perfect for us. 3 bedrooms, a nice yard, and a basement that we turn into my home office since I work remotely. Daniel comes from a big, close-knit family. His parents immigrated here when he was little, and they've always been very involved in each other's lives. I like them well enough, but they've always had a hard time with boundaries. His mom especially tends to act like Daniel is still a teenager who needs her approval for everything. I've tried to be respectful, but sometimes it feels like I'm constantly being tested or judged. Last month, Daniel's younger brother, Mark, 29M, lost his job and broke up with his girlfriend. He was living with her, so when they split, he had nowhere to go. Daniel immediately offered that Mark could stay with us for a few weeks. I agreed, though I wasn't thrilled. I like Mark, but he's messy and tends to take advantage of Daniel's generosity. He moved into our guest room, and within a few days, his stuff was everywhere. Dishes piled up, his laundry overflowed into the hallway, and he borrowed my laptop without asking, just for a minute, but left it sticky and full of crumbs. I talked to Daniel about setting boundaries. He promised he'd talk to Mark, but instead, he shrugged it off, saying his brother was going through a rough time. That few weeks turned into 6. Then, out of nowhere, Daniel told me his parents were thinking of selling their house because the mortgage had become unmanageable and they wanted to downsize. I said that made sense, but I didn't realize he meant they wanted to downsize into our house. Apparently, Daniel had told them that if they sold their home, they could stay with us for a while until they found something smaller. He said this casually one night while we were making dinner, as if he was mentioning the weather. I thought he was joking. When I realized he wasn't, I told him absolutely not. We do not have the space for 4 extra adults, and his parents are not easy people to live with. He got defensive immediately, saying, "They're my family. You should want to help them." I told him I wasn't running a halfway house. His brother was already pushing it, and now he wanted his parents here too? That would mean I lose my office, our bills go up, and I'd have 0 privacy in my own home. He argued that it was just temporary, and that I was being selfish and cold-hearted. A few days later, I came home from a work trip to find his parents in our living room with boxes. Daniel had apparently told them it was fine to start moving things in because we'd work it out. I saw red. I pulled Daniel aside and asked what the hell he thought he was doing. He said he didn't want to stress me out while I was away, so he decided to handle it. I told his parents, politely but firmly, that I had never agreed to this. His mom looked shocked and said, "Daniel told us you were fine with it." I said, "Well, I'm not." They got awkward and said they'd leave if I really wanted that. I told them I did. Daniel was furious. He accused me of humiliating his parents and said I made them feel unwelcome in their son's home. I snapped back that it's our home, not his personal family refuge. He called me heartless and stormed out to help them unpack at their place. Since then, we've barely spoken. He's been staying at his parents' house some nights, and his brother hasn't moved out either. He keeps texting me that I owe his family an apology because I embarrassed them and made them feel unwanted. I told him that if he continues to disregard my boundaries, maybe he should move back in with them permanently. Here's where I'm questioning myself. I do understand that family is important. I know his parents have worked hard and are struggling financially, but I feel completely betrayed that Daniel made this decision behind my back. It's not even just about the logistics. It's about the total lack of respect for my say in our own home. My friends are split. Some say I was absolutely right and that Daniel crossed a major line. Others say that marriage means compromise, and maybe I could have let them stay temporarily just to avoid causing such a rift. To make it worse, his mom has been calling me, trying to guilt-trip me. She told me she and his dad don't understand why I hate them, and that they've always treated me like a daughter. I told her this isn't about hate, it's about boundaries. She sighed and said, "You'll understand when you have children." That made me so angry I had to hang up. Now Daniel says he's reconsidering our marriage if I can't be part of the family. I told him that being part of the family doesn't mean being a doormat. He said, "Well, it sure sounds like you think you're better than us." The worst part is, I still love him. But I'm realizing we might not be compatible long-term if he refuses to see that decisions about our home should involve both of us. I keep wondering if I overreacted or if I could have handled it differently. Maybe should have just let them stay for a short while until they got sorted. But every instinct in me says this isn't about hospitality. It's about respect. So, AITA for refusing to let my husband's family move in after he invited them without asking me. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.